This is your host, Bruce Hutcheon, welcoming you to another informative episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. This is Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast, episode number 337. Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. This is your host, and we're going to change it up, so I'm going to introduce Mike Grandstaff from Whitetail Stalker to do an interview of yours truly, Bruce Hutcheon. It's never too early to think about food plots. Whitetail Rendezvous has an ebook for you. Just simply text 33444 food plot to get your copy.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. This is not your host, Bruce Hutcheon. This is Mike Grandstaff from Whitetail Stalker. Bruce is going to be our guest today. Bruce is out in Colorado Springs, Colorado. He's on the other end. How you doing, Bruce?
Hey, I'm just doing fine, and glad to be with you, Mike. And I'm kind of laughing to myself because I'm going, oh, this is different.
It is different on the other end, isn't it?
Yes, sir, it is.
So how's the weather going out there, Bruce?
Well, we've had 60-degree temperatures, and actually it's going pretty darn nice.
Nice. Well, hey, I'll tell you what, I've seen and heard a lot of reviews and people talking about Whitetail Rendezvous. How did you guys come up with this whole idea of starting up Whitetail Rendezvous as a podcast?
Well, and Mike, I give you full authority if I start talking and going on too long. Just tell him, Bruce, just jerk my reins, and I'm good with that. So back, my partner is Bob Rourke, and if you were at ATA, you met Bob Rourke, and so he and I were on the Safari Club International local board here in Colorado Springs. And, they call it a local board, and really it's just a fundraising committee for SCI. But we were on that, and I retired. It's 2012 I retired and did a lot of different things and nonprofit work, so forth and so on. And Bob always told me, he said, when you retire, I'm going to figure something else, and we're going to form a partnership, and we're going to have some fun. So fast forward to 2014, and I hunted in the Midwest for just about the whole month. I hunt from the 24th, 25th of October through after Thanksgiving, and gun and bow and muzzleloader, whatever. And so I came back from that in January of 2015, and I said, and Bob and I were catching up, and he said, I know what we're going to do. And I said, He said, we're going to do a podcast. And I said, well, what's a podcast? That was in January, February. And now we're in February 1st, 2017. We've got over 100,000 downloads, and this is show number 337, of which you've been part of that. And so that's why we started. But I want to interject now, and I am going to ask a question. And when I had you on the show early on, you said something that's turned into be prophetic, and just share that with the listeners.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that pretty vividly. I just stopped you in the middle of our conversation, and we were talking about Whitetail Rendezvous, and I told you, I said, Bruce, I said, Whitetail Rendezvous is going to be something someday, and I just know it. And the reason I said that is because after talking to you, and I think that was my second interview with you, I said that. And anybody else that knows you, has ever talked to you, can attest to what, the way I was thinking, because anytime you hear Whitetail Rendezvous, you associate it with Bruce Hutcheon. And to know the kind of guy that you are, it leaves a lasting impression on anybody that's ever had the pleasure, to interact with you. And so I'm very privileged and honored to be on this end of it, talking to you as my guest, because there's a lot of things I want to know about Bruce Hutcheon, and I know there's a lot of people that want to know probably the same things I want to know. So yeah, that's what I think. So I think the way you're rolling right now with over 100,000 downloads, people talking about it. My whole Whitetail Stalker team. They're being interviewed and just loving it. And the nice thing about Whitetail Rendezvous is what I like about how you guys have done it is you're not just focused on the big celebrities. You're talking to the average everyday hunters and what makes them tick when they're out in the woods. And I know you're going to be at the Iowa Deer Classic for anybody that's going to be there this year, March 3rd to the 5th. So that's going to be pretty cool to see you there because I'll be there myself. But what I'd like to know is a lot about your hunting history. As a kid, we'll just move right into that. As a kid growing up, when were you introduced to hunting, period?
Great question, and if you go to my website, you can read the about, and it talks about the beginning, and it really gives you a great overview of who Bruce Hutcheon is and what I've done in my career. But getting specifically to the discussion we're having now. I was born in Providence, Rhode Island, and my dad worked for Chrysler Corporation, and he was within the Mopar division, and he ran the New England part for Mopar. And so, 5 years after I was born, we moved out to a place called Foster Center, Rhode Island, which is quintessential 4 roads. And on one side, you got a one-room schoolhouse. The other side, you got a Baptist church. Then you got the county clerk's office. Then our house. I mean, we were kind of right there in the middle of this little town in New England. And I read a lot of books or magazines. I'd get a hold of magazines or subscribe to Field and Stream, when I was 6, 7, 8 years old. So I knew I always would be a hunter, not a gatherer. I'd be a hunter. And that's true. Mike's got my resume, and I've been a hunter all my life in corporate America or on the ground throughout North America. And I've been blessed to hunt all over North America, from Kuujjuaq to all the way to Lake Iliamna, and that's Alaska, to northern Quebec, and all the way down into parts of Arizona and such. And why do I hunt? And I think that's the thing that I want to share with all the listeners. I hunt, 1, because I can. 2, because it puts me closer to God. And 3, because I eat what I kill. Yeah, I got a couple of trophies, and I have a couple of trophies. I don't have a lot of trophies mounted. I've collected them, and I'll bring the horns home, and my buddy's got a bar, or this guy doesn't have any horns in his house, or whatever. So basically, I've given away a lot of trophies simply because I own the experience. I own the memory, and nobody can take that away from me. So let's go back to Foster Center, Rhode Island. And I had an Uncle Henry, and he lived on a farm. It was a substantial farm in Rhode Island, couple hundred acres. And I would go down, and Uncle Henry lived a very simple life, and my cousins Billy and Henry lived a simple life, and my Aunt Catherine. I'm talking about they had electricity, but they pumped water into the kitchen sink, and they heated the house with a coal-fired, they burned coal. And this is even into the 60s, when I was going down there. And they lived a subsistent life, not unlike you see reality shows about Alaska, Life Below Zero or the Alaskan Frontier. I mean, they lived that, and they would always hunt in season, and they'd always, capture game, and they had traps, and they had foxes, and they get furs, and they'd sell them, and raccoons, and they'd sell them. And I went down there, and they taught me how to skin. They taught me how to set a trap. They taught me how to shoot a .22, and we'd shoot clay pigeons and stuff, hand thrower. And so as a young kid, I was born in 46, so we moved to Foster in 50 at 4 years old. Now I'm doing this stuff at 6, 7, 8 years old, and 10 years old. And so, I learned a lot, and I'll just share this one story about Uncle Henry. So we're out and we're shooting clay birds, and then all of a sudden he goes, "Go get my 45-70." And I go, "Okay." He says, "It's loaded. Don't touch the trigger." I said, "Okay." So I went in his gun rack, got it, brought it up, and he just goes, boom! I have no idea what he shot. Well, he harvested or shot at a deer. Let's just leave it like that. And and he's long gone, so and
so growing up, was there any big public figure, hunting figure that kids of your age were looking up towards, like we have today? We got the Jim Shockeys and Michael Waddell's. Was there anybody in particular back in those days, that you guys had an opportunity to look up to?
The thing I remember most about Field and Stream was, and I hope I get this right, Old Men and a Boy. I read that a lot. I can't tell you, that I, looked at anybody, and it's real simple. Uncle Henry, and then Otto Knight. Otto Knight was my neighbor when we lived in Foster Center. And so he sold grain from Eastern States. He sold grain, so he's a grain distributor, and people would buy grain for their cows, for Western Rhode Island and then into Connecticut, and that was it. And so as a young man, he said, "Okay, come down and sweep out my my office or the warehouse or whatever." And I would do that. Then he'd take me trout fishing. And then when I get a little bit older, he said, "Okay, take the pickup and go down and pick this up and come back." And I go, "I'm only 10 years old." I jumped.
So you had a pretty good role model growing up, as far as hunting and fishing.
And he was a hunter.
So you didn't really, you didn't even need a. You didn't even need
he was a hunting fool.
A public role model.
Oh, in the pickup, he always carried his shotgun or his 22. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I can relate to that. That's somebody I would look up to, too, as being a young kid. I had my Uncle Mike most of the time, doing that. I've talked to you about that before, but that just leads me into, the hunting industry today is so much different, and it's progressed, to the point that it is today compared to back, when you were a kid. What's some of the positives that you see out of the hunting industry right now?
Interesting you would say that, because to me, the anticipation of getting up, and I spent last August, I spent 22 days above 10,000 feet sheep hunting. And the anticipation of going rabbit hunting or squirrel hunting or trapping raccoons with Otto is the same anticipation I feel today. So to me, it's a huge industry, and I'm part of that industry. I get that. But the hunting aspect, it's no different today than I was a young man, because every day is an opening day. It's just like when I fly fish and that trout rises to my fly, or I catch him, I see his mouth open and turn his head, and I see the white inside of his lips when he's taking my nymph, because he's feeding and I'm nymph fishing. That's just as good as when I was 6, 7, 8 years old fishing the creek below Otto's cabin on his family homestead. It's the same feeling. That has never left me. So when you make that statement, what's different? To me, the tradition of hunting is exactly the same. I'm just older and I'm better at it. But when I was a kid, right, I killed a lot of stuff when I was a kid with a single shot 22 or a single shot 20 gauge, pull back the hammer and pull the trigger shotgun. It's the same. My tools are different.
Right, but the joy of the hunt is still there. It's the same thing as it was, probably a span of 50, 60 years. So, I guess it's all about what a hunter makes of his hunting trip, It's probably no different than when you grew up than what I experienced when I go out, Even me as a kid, when I was a kid, it's really no different. If I go hunting by myself, age has no bearing on my hunting experience. So I feel where you're coming from there. Just to switch gears for just a second, I wanted to ask you this. I've always wanted to ask you this. Yellowfin tuna out of Eastern Pacific, out of San Diego, California.
Yep.
What is that like to land a yellowfin tuna? Because I, from what I see on TV, those things can fight and
have you ever
weigh you down.
Have you ever roped a 300-pound yearling steer?
Nope.
And dallied up?
Nope, but I see where you're going, though.
Okay, so here's I'll just compress it. I live in California. I was involved in the .com industry. That was fun, and then it wasn't so much fun. But during the time it was fun, I did things, and so I started fishing offshore in San Diego. And then you go offshore for an overnight, then you go offshore for 3 days, then you go offshore for 5 days, then you go offshore for 10 days, and then you go offshore for 12 or 14 days. And the longer you're offshore, the farther you go. So we went down to outside of Magdalena Bay. Magdalena Bay is where the gray whales go, and they have their kids. They calve. And so it's a well-known place. And so we're fishing about 50 to 100 miles off Magdalena Bay, and it's the last day of a trip, 10-day trip. And it's the last day of the trip, and we've caught fish, but we really haven't caught what we want. Then all of a sudden, everybody, the deckhands or deck technicians and the skipper and everybody lights up and said, "Here they come!" And we got attacked by 200, 300. We never caught a 400, but there were big tunas there, and so it's all stand up. There's no chairs. It's just you, and you're in a harness, and you against the fish. The first fish I had on, and they're biting, we're using mackerel, and they're 5 pounds. That's the bait. And so we got the gear to match. And so he takes it, and he's out there a quarter mile. On my big reels, I have, over a quarter mile of spectra on it. And then all of a sudden, it just came apart. And when you have that much pressure on a steamrolling fish, it's just like you're roping a 300-pound yearling, and you're trying to dally up, and he doesn't want to go, and it's a train wreck. That's all you can say. So bang! I mean, that's how loud it goes. It was louder than that. And the deckhand looks at me, "Are you okay? Are you okay, Bruce?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Grab your reel." He baited another fish. I threw it in, and I get hit almost instant bite. And so then the fish takes me laps around this boat. And these are 110-foot boats, and there's about 20 fishermen and about 10. You got to cook. There's about 10 people taking care of you. And so I start doing laps. And, I'm fighting it on the bow, and then he's kicking my butt. And I'm not a small guy, but he's kicking my butt. So I have to slow everything down because, I want to show him who's boss wrong. And so I had to just slow down, take a breath, and just let my reels. And I used Penn International 2-speeds. And I just let the gearing, I put it in low gear, and I just get an inch every crank, not a foot, an inch. And I'm just working them back and working them back and working them back. And it turned out I was the last fish on the boat, and it was 225 pounds. It took me an hour and some odd minutes, man on man. Yeah, I had somebody giving me some water and stuff like that. And you can't imagine the joy. Well, if you see my picture, someday I'll share you guys my picture of my personal best. And my friend Dave Rocky was there, and he's smiling as big as I am because he knew I had fished hard for 3 years and I never broke 200. Caught a lot of 100 pounds, no big deal. But 200 is like that's like a 350 bolt. It's Boone and Crockett, but it's the low end. Then you go to 300, that's definitely a Boone and Crockett bull. You hit a 400, then you're over 400 inches of an elk. And you can equate that to a deer or whatever you want to do.
Right.
And so, I did that, and that was one of my goals. It was on my bucket list to get in the 200-pound club, and I did it. And that night, everybody had 1 or 2 fish over 200 pounds. So if you take 20 people times 200 pounds, that's how much fish, actually more, because some guys caught 2. We put on the boat that night.
Good grief. Now what do they do with all that tuna? You guys
eat it.
Individually keep it yourself.
Tuna fish.
Well,
you ever heard about tuna fish?
You could eat on that for about 20 years.
No, it goes fast. Because just trust me. I came home with cases of tuna fish.
Exactly. Hey, let's switch gears for a minute. This is another one of my questions that's been gnawing at me. Okay, we're going to head north to Alaska. Okay, the tundra of Alaska. What did you hunt up there?
Well, I've been fortunate to go to Alaska a couple of times, and I'll just share this this first trip. My friend Peter Kummerfeld, and Peter came from Africa and from Kenya, and his mother was from the United States, but his father was a Brit, and so they were in Africa, and the whole family was raised in Africa. And Peter Kummerfeld's his name, is one of the premier survival instructors globally. He's retired now, but he's given lectures to about high altitude pulmonary edema to doctors at Snowmass. He's traveled literally around the world using his skills to help survival instructors and government agencies, blah, 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 and about how to survive in every single environment on Earth. That's how good this guy is. So he and I think, I can't remember what the birthday was, but I said, Peter, let's go up and shoot some caribou and catch some trout and salmon and grayling, and we'll do the Steelhawk River. So we fly into Anchorage and then float trip out of there to not the headwaters of the Steelhawk, which drains into the Mulchatna. But anyway, we got 100 miles to row, and I love the rower raft. So it's just Peter and I with our rifles and our gear and everything stowed in, and we start drifting down this river and catching a lot of grayling, a few trout. We just missed the silver run. They were there, but the bears were eating them, and they wouldn't really bite. But we just drifted down and spent, I don't know if we spent 10 days. I can't remember. But anyway, we had hellacious wind. There was a hurricane down in I want to say the Gulf of Alaska. I don't know if that's right, but anyway, and it was hellacious winds, and so we had to get in spruce thickets and batten everything down. And then when the wind died out, we went hunting, and we didn't shoot a caribou because it was too warm. I saw a lot, and I saw moose and bear, and had a bear just walk around our tent at midnight. That was fun.
It sounds like a trip of a lifetime to me.
Oh, Lord. And then so Peter and I, we read books and hang out, and unfortunately, because it was way too warm, the meat would spoil, even though you kept it cool as best you can, and it just didn't work out. We had a great fly fishing trip, and one of my favorite pictures from the whole trip is we hit the sandbar, and there's a grizzly bear track, and right beside it there's a wolf track, and I have that picture, and it's like quintessential Alaska. You're in the wild, and you are not top of the food chain. You're at least third down, even with my 338. Even with my 338, I'm still down there. So, that's one of the trips, and that's one of my Alaska trips.
That sounds like a trip of a lifetime to most people. Even me. There's a lot of things I haven't done, that I'd like to do, but just to live those stories through people like you, it does a lot for me. So, and I know you've also, we won't have to cover too much, but I know you've also done a wolf hunt. And we won't talk about that too much, but good grief, that would be cool. That would be really cool, because I don't really think people understand how big those are until you got one right there in your arms, after you've harvested it. But that'd be another thing, right?
They can read that story at Go Hunt. Just Google Go Hunt Bruce Hutcheon, and there's two stories. I went to British Columbia, really short, and hunted mountain goats with Mike Hartridge from Big Country Outfitters, and I'll just say this: Mike Hartridge is probably one of the best horsemen that I've ever met. He's what he does with those Chicotlan wild Mustangs is unbelievable, and he just says so. I went on a 5-day mountain goat hunt because he said he probably could do it in 5 days. So I said, okay. And I flew up there and we got it done in 3 days. So then we went wolf hunting. So you go to Go Hunt, just Google Go Hunt / Bruce Hutcheon, and you can read about it. Or I think Mike's got my YouTube video. The only video I have, it lasts about 90 seconds, and you can watch me rock a 125, 130 pound alpha male.
Yeah, I watched that video. You rocked him. It was a good video too. That was pretty neat. Well, I was talking to the team, Bruce, and I asked the team. I said, if you guys had to ask Bruce something, that it's on your mind, what would it be? And I got a list of questions here, just real quick answers, if you'd like to answer some of these for those guys.
Yeah, and we're about, we've got about 10 more minutes max.
Okay, well, that'd be good. Let me just ask you a few of these in real quick, and we'll see. Let me see. Let me find you good one. If you could hunt with anyone in the world, who would it be and where? I mean, you don't have to pick me, Bruce.
I was going to be nice, and I was going to say, well, heck, that's easy.
But you're always welcome to go hunting with me anytime you want.
Yeah, there's two guys. I mentioned Adonai and then Harry Shear. Now, Harry, I hunted with him in 1966. He was Dick Rogers' brother-in-law. And short story, Dick Rogers owned the bar called the Library Bar in La Crosse, Wisconsin. We were both going to college there, and he was a little bit older, just a couple of years, but he had figured out, and he bought a bar, and I tended bar with him. So it was Thanksgiving 1966, and he says, "Hey, why don't you come home with me, Hutch? I know you can't get back to New York for Thanksgiving, so come on with us and we'll go shoot some whitetails." I go, "Okay, I know what a whitetail deer is. Shooting, I don't have a gun, I don't have anything." He said, "No, just work a couple more hours, get $100, you can get a shotgun, a license, slugs, boots, coveralls, and a hat, and some gloves. You'll be fine." And so that's what we did. So we get to get Union Center in Wisconsin, stay with Nani, that's his mother, and hang out, and then we go out to the night before the hunt, and nobody goes to sleep because we're just in the bars. I mean, that's the way it was. And so we get back in and we crash, for just a couple hours, and then all of a sudden they're tickling Bob and Dick Rogers are tickling my nose with a feather. "Come on, Hutch, it's time to go." I go, "Oh, it's the middle of the night, dude." And they, "No, we got to go hunting." I said, "Okay, fine." So we go up to the farm, the family farm, the Rogers family farm, and they said, "Okay, here's what we're going to do. And today we're here at the farm, but we're going to save this for tomorrow because that's just what we're going to do. We're going to go up to the swamp and see the swamp, blah, blah, blah." And Harry was there and Pat, his wife, and they both since passed, but so they're there, and the Rogers, and so we go up to Necedah, and I saw one deer the whole day, and it was a tiny little fork-horned deer, and I go, "That looks like a dog," and I didn't shoot it, and so that was that, and Pat shot like an 8-pointer, and that was it. That's all we got. And so we went back and hung it at the farm, and went back to the bars. And then went back to bed and get up and said, "Oh, we're going to stay at the family farm." We started doing drives. And you got to think, 1966, that's how you hunted deer in Wisconsin. You drove them. You might sit for at half an hour, 45 minutes at sunrise and sunset, but the rest of the time, and when we're talking driving along the Baraboo River, we would get 10 to 20 guys, and we would go for 5 miles because we knew where they're going to bust out, and you just drove them. And sometimes you never see a deer, but you'd hear the shots, and so that's just the way it was. And we had a crew, probably 10 or 15 guys, and we drove the family farm, and there's a picture I'm looking at right now. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bucks in the back of Dick's Brothers pickup, international pickup, and there I am. And, I'm sitting there, and they're all basket bucks. Forget the score. It's browning down because we're eating them. I mean, those people, we ate deer. We ate deer, and deer stew and deer lasagna and deer spaghetti and, or venison and then heat 'em ups and then jerky and then summer sausage. I mean, we're in college. We ate deer. And that was the beginning. And the first year, I'll just share this. So we're driving, and Dick says, okay, Hutch, you're going to come here. I'm going to put you on stand here. You're going to go lay behind that log in the woods, and there's a good-sized hill, and they're going to come right along there, or they're going to bust in the field. And he had a 308 or 36 or 30-06 with a scope, and then I had my shotgun. And so I'm laying behind the log. He said, just lay down, don't do anything, and he'll walk right by if he comes that way, or he'll run across the field and I'll shoot him. I go, okay. Then I kind of peek out to Dick, and he's 100 yards away, just on the edge of the woods in the field. And all of a sudden I see him bring his scope up, and he's looking into the woods, not out in the field. I go, okay. And then I hear this rustling, sounds like a squirrel. And I go, oh, and it gets closer, and then it stops. Then it gets closer and it stops. I go, holy fright. It's a deer. It's a deer. And I can see Dick kind of watching it. And then the deer's probably 50 yards, and he just kind of puts his rifle down and doesn't do anything. He's watching me, but puts his rifle down. And it gets closer and closer. And so I'm just laying there. The wind's right. The deer doesn't know I'm there. Forget about scent control and everything. The wind was in my face, and he didn't know I was there. So all of a sudden, I hear him get closer and stop. This is so funny. So I got a shotgun with no plug in it or anything. There's not 3 shots. I think it was 5 shots. So I just kind of tip up, and I start moving, and Dick goes like this. I can see him go, stay down. And I didn't. And so I jump up. There's a deer. He looks at me. I look at him. I go, boom, 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 boom. And Dick's laughing. I can hear him laughing. I did hit him with the first shot. The other shot that I found, I took his ear out. I put a hole in his ear. And there's, of the 5 others or 3 other shots, there is no, and Dick is laughing. Stop shooting Hutch. You killed him. He's dead. You're making hamburger the meat. Stop.
I think we've all been there, haven't we?
And that was my first deer kill. That was it. Nice.
That was a great story, too. But that leads me into this question, okay? Why do you love chasing whitetails? What is it about the whitetail that it doesn't just affect Bruce Hutcheon? It affects Mike Grandstaff. It affects, man, look at the industry. It affects so many people. But what is it about the whitetail that we love, We love the whitetail probably bar none more than any other animal on this planet to hunt, in my opinion. Am I wrong?
Nope. A mature buck is one of the hardest trophies to get in North America. And I'll stand by that segment because I've killed a lot of deer. Mm-hmm. I've killed 150 plus, and that was up in Saskatchewan. And the only reason he wasn't Boone and Crockett is because he was about 3.5, maybe 4.5 years old. I don't think he was 4.5. I never aged him. And he's on my wall. And to hunt and put down a mature buck, and I'm talking 150 plus, consistently, year in, year out, public land. I'm not talking about outfitters, and I'm not talking about, private land, just doing it DIY. I think that's the hardest trophy to get in North America. Why? Because they can live on 40 acres. There can be a mature buck, 4.5 years old, 150 or better, and you will never see him. And he's there. You can see him on your trail camera, but you only might get one picture of him the whole year, but he's still there. And so when I have to match up all my hunting experience, all my skills, using all the best technology, and still he beats me, I mean, what a game. What a hunt. It's a hunt.
Yeah. I can add to that. I'm on social media on Facebook. I posted a picture of a buck I call Dogleg. because he had a G3 that was bent over at the top. So I just, dog leg refers to, dog leg on the golf course. So anyway, it was a week before deer season. Bow season came in this year. He was he disappeared. All the bucks, were gone a week before deer season. And I kid you not, the last day of muzzleloader season, he shows up on my trail cam again in the food plot. This whole hunting season, he never showed on the trail cam. I never seen him while I was hunting, but I guarantee you, just like you said, he was there.
He was no more than a quarter mile from you at any time, and I'll stand on that. And you can call whatever you want to call, but I can get on the map now. And the thing about that, I gotta tell the people this. The thing about Whitetail Rendezvous, the people I've had on the show, I had those people when I was hunting hard for whitetails, and it wasn't the joy of the hunt. I was hunting for a rack. I was hunting for points. And folks, for me, I was hunting for all the wrong reasons. I have friends that have sides of barns. They start at 198 and go all the way down to 125, all kill with a bow. And, I was competing with him. I got another friend. He's got a 150 buck from every state, from Wisconsin, all the way around Wisconsin, up into Canada, from every state. He's even got a couple of Western, 150 plus whitetails. I was in competition, and I was wrong. I'm saying it for myself, and Mike didn't know I was going to say this, but I was wrong. I was hunting for the wrong reasons. And when I started the show, Brenda Valentine took me to task. She said, "Bruce, never apologize for what you shoot, and it's your trophy. It's nobody else's."
That's 100% correct. Yep, I stand by that too. Yep, and Brenda, she's a wise woman, and she spoke some good words right there. Well, I think that wraps up pretty much my questions, but I will say this to all the listeners. You can find more about Bruce on his Facebook page or Whitetail Rendezvous page. Check out his YouTube video of his wolf harvest. That was pretty cool. Bruce, is there anybody you want to give a shout out to right now?
Well, yeah, Mike, Whitetail Stalkers, because after ATA, and I just got to share with everybody, since I came back in January 13th of 2017, things have happened for Whitetail Rendezvous that it's just amazing. And I can talk about the lower attraction, and that's a concept. And someday, hopefully I'll get a chance to share that with everybody at a seminar or something. But our business has completely gone upside down. And I wrote somebody today that said, "Bruce, how are you doing?" I said, we're burning white hot flames. It's fast and furious. It just gasoline has been poured on our business. And like I told Mike today, I started at 7:30, 8 o'clock this morning, and now it's 6 o'clock. And literally, I took a bathroom break, I grabbed the sandwich, and that's it. I've been on the phone talking deals, talking with sponsors, talking with leverage partners, which I'll stop right there. Whitetail Stalkers with Mike Grandstaff and crew are our first social media and lead digits leverage partners. And I'm just so excited about what we're going to do together to help grow the industry, grow each other's businesses, and make a difference in the whitetail world.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting time. Like you said earlier, we both don't know what's going to happen, but, I think I've always let God, lead thing, and with Whitetail Stalker, and now that we're partnered up with Whitetail Rendezvous, I think the sky's the limit. I think we're going to get there. So,
well, hey, like T-Done said, that's a wrap, and it's time for a nap. So, Mike, close the show.
Well, folks, thanks for joining in with us today with Bruce Hutcheon, the host of Whitetail Rendezvous. It's been my privilege and my honor to be on this side of the phone for once, and I hope you all come back and make sure that if you listen to the podcast, make sure you leave a review. That's very important for Whitetail Rendezvous that you do that, and we hope you just keep coming back and listening for more. Thanks again, Bruce.
Thank you, Mike.
Hey, make sure you listen to the next episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. We're going to be visiting with Keith Jackson. Now, Keith is going to talk about building a hunter relationship that is priceless. He's also going to share some memories of the field from 216 hunts. He's got some techniques that he's going to share that'll help you without ever leaving your home office, how to scout out, find funnels, find pinch points, and find mature bucks. Stay tuned. It's going to be a great show.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.